Did you kill your mother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind was pretty much blank.
And when you swung that hammer the first time, did you swing it hard?
Mm-hmm.
Did she make a noise?
I could just hear the hammer hitting her head.
And what did it sound like?
It was this wet thumping sound.
Did you laugh when you were hitting her?
Yeah.
Why did you laugh?
I just thought she deserved it.
Why did you kill her?
She wasn't taking care of my family.
He was only 15 when he picked up a sledgehammer, crept into his mother's bedroom, and shattered her skull with 20 crushing blows while she slept. No hesitation, no noise, just raw silence and bone-breaking force. Then he calmly spread gasoline through the hallway, lit a flame, and walked away as fire crawled toward his brother's room. Later found by police wandering alone, he confessed everything in chilling detail. No emotion, no regret. Just a strange, quiet laugh that left investigators frozen. This wasn't rage. It wasn't impulse. It was premeditated horror carried out by a boy with a dead stare and no soul. This is Untold Crime Chronicles. Subscribe, please. What you're about to hear will stay with you forever. He didn't talk much, didn't smile often, didn't make friends. He drifted through school halls like a shadow no one noticed. Teachers described him as quiet. Classmates called him strange, but no one thought he was dangerous. He kept to himself, stayed home, read books, played video games, and avoided conversation. Even his family struggled to understand him. After his father died from ALS when Zachary was just 9, something inside him disconnected. He stopped laughing, stopped trusting, and stopped showing any signs of normal emotion. He began writing in journals, not about his feelings, but about violence, revenge, and death. He claimed to hear voices, whispers that crept into his mind and refused to leave. His mother thought it was grief, hoped it would pass, but the silence wasn't peace. It was pressure building in secret. After the death of his father, the Davis household fell into a quiet that felt more like a void than healing. Melanie Davis did her best to hold everything together, working long hours, raising 2 boys alone, trying to fill the gap that ALS had carved through their lives. She noticed Zachary wasn't the same. His eyes looked distant, his presence colder, but she believed love and structure would be enough. She refused psychiatric treatment when it was suggested, thinking he just needed time. But time wasn't healing him. It was hardening him. Zachary became obsessed with thoughts of control and pain. He filled notebooks with drawings, violent entries, disturbing fantasies that no one read until it was too late. In his mind, the people closest to him weren't protectors. They were enemies, and his silence was not confusion. It was calculation, waiting for a reason. Zachary didn't snap. He prepared, silently, methodically over days and weeks. He wrote in his journal about killing, not out of anger, but curiosity, control, and a twisted sense of justice he built in his mind. He wrote about fire, about weapons, about ways to make people disappear. And no one knew, because no one ever checked. He decided on the tool, a sledgehammer. Not a knife, not a gun, something that would require strength, something personal. He took the money his mother gave him, went to the store alone and bought it, carried it home like a secret trophy, then hid it in his room, waited for the right moment, the right night, the perfect silence. He drew diagrams of the house, marked the bedrooms, mapped out escape routes. It wasn't rage, it was ritual. And once the plan was complete, he showed no nerves, no doubt, only one final step left: execution. August 10th, 2012. The house was still, the kind of stillness that hides something unnatural. Melanie Davis went to bed unaware her youngest son had transformed quiet into a weapon. Zachary waited until everyone was asleep, pulled the sledgehammer from its hiding place, walked slowly to his mother's room, opened the door without a sound, and stood over her bed, watching her breathe. Then, without hesitation, he lifted the sledgehammer high and brought it down with brutal force. The first blow crushed her skull. The next 19 erased her face. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just swung until he was sure she was gone. Blood covered the walls, the bed, and his clothes. He left the room, changed, went to the hallway, poured gasoline, struck a match, and set the house on fire, not as panic, but as cleanup. A final step to erase the rest. He hoped his older brother would die in the flames, too. Then he walked away from the burning home like nothing had happened, like a boy heading out for a walk, with no fear, no rush, no soul. When police found Zachary Davis, he wasn't running, wasn't hiding, just walking alone down a street in Hendersonville, Tennessee, calm, empty, disconnected from the fire behind him and the murder he left in his mother's bedroom. Officers brought him in, expecting shock, confusion, maybe tears. But what they got was something far more disturbing. Zachary sat still in the interrogation room, answered every question with a flat voice, described each detail without emotion. He explained how he hit his mother 20 times, how he lit the fire, how he wanted his brother to die too, like he was talking about doing homework, no shaking, no fear, no grief. And then, as the officer pressed him for why, Zachary laughed, a quiet, eerie sound that made the room colder, not from joy or nerves, but from something inside him that had long stopped recognizing human life. It wasn't a cry for help, it was a confirmation. He did it, and he didn't care. Psychologists were brought in to examine what lived behind Zachary's deadpan eyes, what could make a 15-year-old carry out such horror with surgical calm. Some believed he suffered from schizophrenia. Others said it was early-onset psychosis mixed with years of emotional neglect. But what disturbed them most wasn't just the diagnosis. It was his awareness. Zachary admitted to hearing voices. Yes, but he also admitted to planning the murder step by step with full understanding of what he was doing. His journals weren't ramblings. They were blueprints, filled with dark fantasies, death lists, maps, revenge sketches, and cold strategies. He didn't blame the voices. He didn't claim confusion. When asked if he regretted using a sledgehammer, he said no. He only wished he had used a gun for quicker results. It wasn't the voice of a lost child. It was the voice of someone who had accepted destruction as a choice and wore it like second skin. At 17, Zachary Davis stood in an adult courtroom, small in frame but heavy with the weight of unimaginable violence. The prosecution painted him as a cold-blooded killer, methodical, deliberate, beyond redemption. They presented his journal entries, the detailed confession, the chilling interrogation footage where he laughed about murder. The sledgehammer was shown to the jury, stained with blood and marked by intent. The defense argued mental illness, schizophrenia, childhood trauma, and a mother who denied him the treatment he needed, but the facts didn't waver. He bought the weapon, planned the act, executed it in silence, and showed no remorse. Psychiatrists debated his sanity, but the law demanded accountability. The jury didn't take long. They found him guilty of first-degree murder and attempted murder. The judge delivered his sentence. Life in prison plus 20 years, with a chance of parole only after 51 years. Zachary showed no emotion as the verdict was read. No tears, no plea, just the same blank stare that had haunted every moment since the night he stopped being a child. In the aftermath of the trial, the world was divided. Some saw Zachary Davis as a monster, born without empathy, a quiet predator who masked his darkness behind silence. Others saw a broken boy failed by every system meant to protect him. His father's death left a wound that never closed. His mother, overwhelmed and grieving, ignored signs that screamed for help. Teachers noticed his strange behavior, but never pushed further. Mental health professionals recommended treatment, but nothing was followed through. He spiraled in plain sight, and no one stepped in. By the time his journal filled with fantasies of murder, the clock was already ticking. Some argued that if he had received therapy, medication, support, Melanie Davis might still be alive, but others said evil doesn't need a trigger, that some people are just wired to destroy, whether by nature, nurture, or neglect. The truth remains the same. One woman is dead, one brother lives with trauma he'll never shake, and one teenage boy now wears a life sentence as quietly as he once carried that sledgehammer. The interrogation video surfaced online years later and spread like wildfire. Viewers watched in disbelief as a teenage boy calmly described how he murdered his mother and then laughed, not a nervous giggle, but a cold, unnatural smirk that froze the room. Clips flooded TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit. Captions read, "He killed her and laughed. The quietest killer. Zachary Davis has no soul." Debates ignited in comment sections. Some called him pure evil. Others blamed untreated mental illness. True crime channels dissected every frame of his interviews. Mental health professionals used his case in lectures about psychopathy and early detection. Parents began asking harder questions about their children's emotional health, but for the Davis family, there was no closure. Only a permanent stain burned into their history. No one could forget the way he spoke, the way he planned, or the way he smiled. Zachary had become something more than a killer. He became a symbol of what happens when silence is ignored for too long. This wasn't a sudden burst of rage. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a moment of panic. This was premeditated, calculated, intentional murder carried out by a boy who never raised his voice, never showed anger, and never asked for help. Zachary Davis planned his mother's death in silence, executed it without hesitation, then spoke about it like he was reading a grocery list. No remorse, no emotion, just emptiness behind the eyes and a quiet laugh that echoed far beyond the interrogation room. He didn't fit the image of a killer, and that's what made him more terrifying. Monsters aren't always loud. They're often invisible, hiding behind good grades, closed doors, and polite smiles. His story forces us to ask hard questions. How many warning signs were ignored? How many systems failed? And how many more children are quietly collapsing behind the walls of their own minds? This was not just the murder of a mother. It was the unraveling of a soul long before the first blow was ever struck. This is Untold Crime Chronicles. Subscribe, please.